This conference will now be recorded.
You're good to go.
So the Airport Advisory Commission meeting for Tuesday, April 2nd is called to order. Lisa, would you give us a roll call, please?
Mike Espiritu, John Powell, Matt McDonald,
Yeah.
John Hitchcock,
Present.
Bud Kunkel.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. First thing on the agenda is election of AAC commissioners, and what that means is, John, did you bring your letter with you? I thought this was pretty neat. Tim,
I didn't bring it with me.
yeah, but Tim sent you one, didn't he?
He sent one.
That was really special. Tim signed off on a letter that John and I could come back on the commission. So I thought that was pretty special. I don't know who prompted that, but anyway. So what we need to do is elect a chair and vice chair, and I'm certainly willing to hear from you two men and from McDonald on what we need to do here. I certainly don't need to serve as chair, but
Well, I move that Bud be reelected as chair.
okay.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Are there any comments about that, John?
With my condolences.
Yeah. That's probably appropriate. All right, Matt, did you hear the motion and second?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of heard it. It was kind of faded, but I think it was a motion for Bud to be main chair, right?
Yes. And if you.
Totally in agreement with, I'm good with that.
If you wouldn't mind amend your motion and give me another second, let's have Mike as vice chair, unless you want to serve as vice chair.
So if you want Mike as vice chair, I amend my motion to include Mike as vice chair.
Okay, second? Okay, motion's been made and seconded that I would serve as chair and Mike Espiritu serve as vice chair. I mean, at least, I guess. All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Don't teach Mike not to come to a meeting.
Okay, so that's taken care of. Approval of the agenda. If you've got any questions on the agenda, I had one item that we need to talk about, Jennifer, that I didn't get to you in time. There was rumblings that we ought to think about moving the meeting back to City Hall again. And so I want to discuss that.
Okay.
And so let's add that. Well, those are not. We had to do. So let's just add that as number 19. That's good. Meeting location. We'll talk about that. Okay, any other corrections or changes to the agenda? Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Minutes from the March 25th regular meeting. If you hadn't taken a couple of minutes to look that over, please do so. Lisa, I think we had to adjust On item 15, that Commissioner Powell had made the motion to recommend that lease.
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. And I think you did that, Sean, but I'm not sure. Any corrections or additions to the minutes as presented?
Yeah, on page 8, item 8, I'm sorry, page 2, item 8. Not too offended by my name being misspelled, but
Oh,
it kind of begs the question, has the evaluation of the proposal, Jennifer, that 3 of us did, I thought in some of the documents we signed that that was supposed to remain confidential, and then it's shown in here. What is the real rule about that?
So when dealing with an RFP, it's confidential up until award.
But see, this was, I think, discussed during our last commission meeting.
All that was discussed as we were going out, it was out for RFP.
We were going to evaluate the proposal.
And we,
But you state who's going to evaluate the proposal. Is that appropriate?
It's not inappropriate, but it's not unusual either. The more normal practice is to keep the group hidden so that nobody can talk.
Yeah,
But
just so I understand,
yeah, it's not against the rules per se. We just normally
Very
don't
good.
do it.
That, John, that was your main question. Announcing who is going to address that. All right. So no correction to that.
no,
Okay, let me call it.
based on the counselor's stuff.
Any corrections or additions then beyond adding item 19? I'm sorry, that was the agenda. Any corrections or additions to the minute? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minute signify so by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries.
who's the first, who made the motion? Paul, okay.
John seconded. Okay, Jennifer, let's start with your report, please.
Lisa, would you mind, because I didn't take my notes. Okay. So, yeah, okay. So our passenger boardings for the month of February are up from last year.
Where's February?
The green bar. So we're 3150 versus the 2794 of last year, and that number would include Phoenix flights. So we're doing better than we were.
We can have this ready for our.
Yes, your presentation at council. We'll have those. And airport operations, the Navy has helped us greatly the month of February. We are at 43.95 versus 33.92, and we had the Navy here at that time as well. So we had better flying weather, I believe, this year. And they had more operations.
392.
372. The number of aircraft, we are up from last month, or the month of January, 273 versus the 239 from 2023. We still have aircraft coming in. Yeah, the revenues, February. Well, I can read it. That doesn't appear. Okay, so the revenue for February on this, 423,611. Expenses were 286,786 with a net of 136,825.
Net 36 plus.
825.
And we'll go on to the next one. We do have the architects online to discuss the terminal evaluations. That is one of our projects on our 25 project list. So if we can go ahead and get them through the program so they can go on with their. Oh, you were still on? Dang, you're good. So it's Rebecca and Jonah.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we certainly can.
Great.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
So you wanted to discuss the options in here, the alternatives. We had 3 different alternatives that were proposed.
Yeah, would I be able to share my screen?
At the bottom,
If-
to the right of the camera. There you go.
That's for me. Ask her if she can share. Request to share.
Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca, if you can share. See if we can pull it
It
up on our end.
still says I need to ask the organizer to make me a presenter.
There you go.
There we go. All right, are you able to see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Wagner. I'm an architect with Gensler. I also have Jonas Philipson with us. He's the design director here in the Denver office. And we were both involved with a terminal evaluation and conceptual expansion report we did back in 2019. And I can walk through really high level the 3 options we had outlined and kind of where we landed at that time for the preferred alternative. Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right. So these were the 3 options we evaluated, and I want you to note that this was done in 2019, so quite a while ago. The cost estimating is definitely outdated, and we would see a significant increase from the numbers that we provided in this report. But they are roughly, option 1 is the most economical, and then option 2 and 3 are fairly similar. But option 3 was the one where we landed at that time as the preferred alternative. So flipping to option 1, the concept for this one was to remove some of the canopies in the existing addition that was done back here in order to grow that center mass of the building towards the airfield, and then have specific expansions on the 2 wings that respond more directly to the needs of those functions. And then you could kind of infill those pieces and add a new canopy to improve the curbside experience and some of the flow. So this floor plan diagram shows the dark orange is the existing footprint of the building, and the light orange shows the expansion. So the ticketing wing would expand a little bit to the towards the airfield in order to provide some airline ticketing space and a larger bag makeup space. The center volume of the space would extend all the way out, and the security checkpoint would be placed in the middle, and then you could have access to 4 gate lounges from that center piece, and the possibility of having concessions more centrally located on the secure side. And the baggage claim extends out a little bit further to the plan west in order to relocate the baggage offices and car rental so that you could get 2 full-size claim devices in there. These were conceptual images of the entry of what could happen to kind of give a new look, a new canopy, and kind of transform the arrival experience for the passengers. And just showing kind of high level interior look and feel of what that volume starts to feel like. We also broke these apart into phasing to understand the implications of which phase you might want to do at what time. Due to the nature of the way this is laid out, you can kind of exchange the phases for what is the priority at the time, but you do need to consider we'd likely have a temporary ticketing facility in order to do the addition and renovation of the ticketing hall. And then similar for baggage claim, you would probably need some temporary facilities while it's under construction, and then you can reopen it. Option number 2 removed both of the wings completely in order to create a new volume that's a more kind of ideal layout of the proportions of some of the spaces that you would want. And then it has another addition to the plan east and to the north, and then as well there's a second level addition to move the administration facilities to the plan east in the new volume. So this option has an entry kind of offset from the center of the existing main entry volume. And then you have a completely new ticketing wing with administration on top, where you get the kind of layouts and bag flows in the most ideal scenario. The security point gets pushed pretty far north to allow room for some queuing. And then once you enter here, you have space for the 4 gate lounges, some concessions, and then you have bag claim here. So arriving passengers can pass through the gate lounges, or there could be a separate entry point into the bag claim. So this one keeps that center volume, but the 2 wings would be new construction. And by moving the admin space out of that center volume gets to be full height, 2-story, the whole thing, really great light, really great feel. This one also preserved really good views to the airfield. As you enter, you're actually lined up and can see all the way through to the airfield compared to the other options. These are the phasing diagrams for this one as well. This one obviously has a little bit more significant impacts as you tear off, demolish the whole entire wing on each side. And then the third alternative we looked at leaves a majority of the building intact, just removing some of the canopies, and then expands with a kind of east-west facing peninsula. You kind of separate the entry points where you have a kind of implied entry for departing passengers and an entry for arriving passengers. The ticketing remains very similar to option 1. You have additional space for ATO and a larger baggage makeup. The security is oriented in the north-south direction, and there's actually a courtyard in between these 2 structures, but that allows the future possibility of expanding security to the plan east if you need an additional lane in the future. And this type of layout is one of the most flexible we typically see for future growth, because the gate lounges can just continue to expand plan east, and bag claim could expand plan west given the apron and secure side availability. And then with the bag claim addition happening here, this wing gets transformed into just ground transportation, so car rental and baggage offices. This one also implied that the level 2 administration would be moved into a separate building not accounted for in this square footage. So that's where you get that full 2-story volume with the great skylights. You have the opportunity for some courtyard outdoor space that could be accessed either secure or non-secure side. And the phasing of this is actually, we think, a little bit easier, because you could potentially have the ability to build this entire wing with minimal operations impact to your existing facility. And then once you connect it, you could then do the ticketing renovation and addition, and then the baggage claim renovation. We also went through a few alternatives on the site plan options, And then we had a series of evaluation criteria that we discussed at the time, kind of a less than desirable, moderate, good, and best rating in order to consider all the different aspects that each of these options provided. And that's where we landed with option 3 being the preferred alternative. And I'm happy to dig in or answer any further questions.
How many check lanes are there in 3?
There are 2 security lanes in all of the options. However, it's important to note option 1, the security checkpoint, is very landlocked. It would be very difficult to grow the security point there unless you were growing the gate lounge space. Option 2 and 3 have more flexibility to grow the security lanes if you were to add more in the future.
Rebecca, it looks like the least demolition is obviously in option 3. And depending on cost, of course, we know that kind of cost, almost $27 million, is not something that the city can necessarily afford today unless we get a bunch of funding from somewhere else. But that could be still, even after 5 years, that looks like that would still be the least costly thing to put into play to gain the most flexibility and space out of. At least to me, it does.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There is probably some economy with option 1, but it's really limited on its growth expansions and future flexibility. So option 3 absolutely provides the most amount of flexibility in future growth scenarios. And the project can be split into different phases as well for the constructability of it as well. We provided these phasing plans considering it as a single effort moving forward, but you could also do the ticketing wing as a separate project, and then the expansion to the north as a separate project, and then the ground transportation and renovation of the existing space.
Rebecca,
Yes.
I want to ask you a question. Hypothetically, we are hopeful that we'll win the Reno Air Races. If that happens, or when that happens, I'm going to phrase it differently. Our most immediate concern would be expanding the security lanes and the holding area, believing that we'll have additional flights to support that. Which of these plans would support that immediate need by starting in June of 25?
Well, it's a very good question. I'm going to go to the one that has all 3 of the plans on it.
Yeah, and maybe even the preferred alternative we just looked at. I think there could be an option to phase the scope of the long horizontal bar north of the existing building, where you really prioritize what what you just described, meaning the new checkpoint and the gate lounge, and the bag claim would stay as is, meaning that whole left side of the building could be done in a future phase. So you would gain kind of the security and the gate lounge space that you desire.
It's almost taking a dividing line here, and you take the east section of option 3, but you'll maintaining the west section of option 1 without those additions. You could allow the bag claim to operate as is if it's sufficient, and then you could just focus on the security, the queuing, and the gate lounges.
I think if you believe that that's feasible, it would be helpful to the leadership of the city to know what would it cost, or what would the cost estimate be to accomplish that, and when would we need to start?
Yeah, it's hard to give estimates at this phase. I would say on schedule, the design and documentation and permitting of a project of this scale might be in the 8 to 10 month range, and construction, depending on the scope, would range, Jonas, help me out, 10 to 14 months maybe?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So how would you cut that to 2 or 3 months, guys?
Well, I think the question too is it, is there a day one need? So when you win the air race, is it, okay, for the first season, we need to have this capacity? Is there some type of temporary solution that allows you to build a long-term solution as it comes back annually? That would be one option to explore. Modular construction, where things are prefabricated, can expedite that, but that we usually see maybe a 20 or 30% reduction in the schedule with those options. So it wouldn't cut it down to 3 or 4 months.
The chair just asked me to indicate how many people are we talking about. I think over the course of the final race, they had 110,000 plus. Of course, not all of those visitors flew in, but a great many did. The other thing, would it be possible to get this in a PDF? Our pages are upside down, every other one, and it's kind of hard to work through it.
Yes, we can absolutely send the PDF along.
And from a cost perspective, as Rebecca said, it is very difficult to anticipate with the inflation we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years and the escalation of construction cost. Similar project typologies that we've recently estimated in New Mexico, these are estimates, not hard bids, were around, say, $650 to $700 a square foot. So in this document, you'll see estimates more around $550, $450. So we're seeing around a 30 to 40% escalation from 2019 in the market.
But that's good construction, not modular construction that can be dressed up later on, isn't it?
Correct. That's new construction ground up in place using I'm gonna call it custom design, but a one-off design. So it's not like a prefabricated building or anything like that. That would make it much more economical. That is correct.
From the standpoint of efficiency of moving people through the airport and have an adequate space to put them into a secured area, is it possible to meet all the requirements for security if we had a pre-engineered steel building that could later something be used differently, or that could be modified to not look like a pre-engineered steel building? Is that possible, or would that really not be possible to meet government requirements?
The pre-engineered product would be acceptable for TSA. Really what they're looking at is the infrastructure and the spatial requirements. So as long as we can provide the IT backbone that they need, the lighting requirements, the spatial requirements, we've experimented with some of these kind of off-the-shelf building typologies before for these types of uses.
So to move quadruple or 10 times the number of people through the airport that we have now, how much space, how much square footage just to get them through security and into a secured area do you think we'd have to have?
The area is hard to estimate. I think we could do an exercise where we understand the need and the constraints, and we could look at some temporary facilities that maybe it's just about the queuing is in a temporary facility, you're not actually moving infrastructure, or like Jonas said, something that could be, finished very quickly and then completed in a future phase. But it would be an exercise to understand the constraints and the growth of the airport in general, as well as in light of the kind of immediate need of this one weekend.
Yeah, it's a little
I
bit
think-
different. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
I think it would be worth your effort to at least give some consideration to what we're talking about. We're supposed to know for sure whether the Reno Air Races are going to move to Roswell by the end of April. So 30 days. And hopefully that, well, middle to the end, I think is what Mike has said. But if it's 2 to 4 weeks, we're supposed to know. So if in fact that comes to pass, something's got to change pretty quickly. And since the mayor's here for the meeting, I know he's already been checking with folks a couple of weeks ago in Washington about some sort of funding. I don't think he got a commitment from anybody, certainly not 25 or $26 million to go do that. But from a cost effectiveness standpoint, to move those people through here, and not everybody has to fly through Roswell. We realize that some of them would likely come from Albuquerque or Middle Odessa or Lubbock, maybe even El Paso. So they'd be traveling to this location. But we know that just moving 400 or 500 people a day isn't going to cut the mustard. So I know you can't spend much time on it until somebody gives you a go do. But if we get this and we learn about it in the next 2 to 4 weeks, something has to change much more quickly than the time frame that you two folks have talked about. And the only way to do that is with some sort of pre-engineered or modular type construction that would meet TSA requirements.
Understood. Yeah. This analysis was looking at the kind of the forecast demand with natural growth. I think we were planning for 174 peak hour passengers, and that's what kind of sizes the throughput. So this is, as you mentioned, this would be quite a different exercise to look at this one event to see what the airline loads would be, how many max kind of peak hour passengers we would have, and then what would be the facility needed size-wise to accommodate that.
One question to Jennifer: can we have more than one outgoing group of passengers in the holding area at a time?
We only have seating capacity for 89 currently.
But if there were 2 flights departing within 30 minutes of one another, we couldn't put both of them in that area,
No.
could we?
No.
So that's kind of
The way we're staffed now, no. And
well, we know we need another security lane.
you will need one.
And
does your designs take in for the equipment that TSA will be bringing in? Because I know TSA and they will bring in bigger equipment as soon as we make that holding area bigger.
Yeah, there were some rather recent TSA standards updated within the last year. So these kind of typical standard sizes are a bit larger now than in 2019. But the TSA officials will also consider your existing conditions and the constraints of the space and will work with us, whether we're trying to fit one within an existing space or provide a new location. They'll typically work with you to make it accommodating.
Well, it would certainly be nice if you could at least give some thought to this, because I think as soon as we know for sure that rah-rah is coming, we have to work expeditiously to figure out the most cost-effective way to get this to happen. Otherwise, we just can't move the volume of people through here that will need to be moved by mid-25.
And does this always occur during the summer months?
No, there's the real heavy load would be in either the second or fourth weekend of September. There's a school for the pilots in June, but that wouldn't be near the volume that we'd need to accommodate in September.
Okay, that's good to understand.
So back that up. Don't count on finishing it in September.
Right.
Have there been any preliminary discussions with the airlines on what they think their flight schedule would look like during the event to accommodate?
We're already working with airlines.
Okay, I'm not normally on those, so.
And that would be helpful data to analyze how many passengers they're anticipating and therefore kind of react into size of space accordingly.
One of the things they told me was that they would, if for during the air show, they said they would have to size the size of plane, and it could be a A-19 or a 737, which is what, about 180
people potentially.
I mean, that's just what they said. He said they'd have to look at that, but he said it's not unusual to work through that. You know, when you have a high gate demand, if you can work through it.
The current planning, and Becca, if you can jump in here as well, we've got 4 gates allocated in the hold room with 2 TSA lanes. Again, that peak hour demand is what we designed to. So that implies there's a bit of a staggered departure schedule on those 4 gates. These were designed to CRJs back in 2019. We would probably recommend to design to the A19, A20, and the 737 fleet mix due to the phasing out of the CRJ aircraft. But you can get a feel for the capacity that this design has with the 4 gates. So with a slight area increase, I think we could accommodate 3 737 gates, depending on if we're talking 7 series up to max 10s, potential max 10s.
And obviously, part of the difficulty is we're going to have extremely high volume traffic during a short time frame during the rest of the time. We may have more traffic. We anticipate that. We anticipate rah-rah bringing additional traffic into this area, probably year round. But it's just going to be extremely high traffic during a couple of weeks. And so we can't build something that would be accommodating 10 times the volume of travelers when we only have 1x travelers instead of 10x travelers most of the year. But it looks to me like the third alternative is still, again, probably the only way to go. And that can literally be sized based on need and based on funding available.
If I may, since this was done in 2019, if we just assume things stayed the same, what cost estimates per year would you anticipate for material and labor costs per year?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Sure. What increase per year in percentage of that cost, that 27 million, would you think would be cost adjustment for increased labor and increased material costs.
For today, I think it's about a 30 to 40% increase. Jonas, would you agree with that?
Yeah, and we're still and that's for today. So if the construction would occur in, let's say, summer of 25, we'd still see about a in most of our projects, we're estimating about a 5% escalation from this year to next.
As long as you get the cumulative square feet, right?
Can we get our hands on Reno Stead during the month of September, their numbers?
Yes.
Well, it would be the Reno, the primary airport, and the DOT reports that. I think, is it monthly or quarterly? But see, Stead doesn't have scheduled air service. It's just general aviation or.
Is it Reno proper?
Yeah, their primary airport.
Both those airports are under the same management structure. Okay. And it's the guys downtown at the big airport that decided
To drive the ship.
that the air bases have to leave.
They give us an idea of what their actual numbers might be.
I don't have any idea on passenger boardings, but they had over 400 general aviation airplanes there. And there were some big corporate jets that is included in that count that could haul 20 people. There was 4 different ones I remember. I don't see anybody else here, but I was too busy trying to find my airplane, so.
Do we have any other questions from any of the participants in the meeting that we need to ask the architects today? Hearing none. Jennifer, have you got anything else that we need to visit with the architects about?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
We certainly appreciate your time again. I think you've focused us on where we need to focus. And if y'all have a method of coming up with a big bundle of cash, you need to let us know that also.
It's a common problem we find.
Right.
We'll pass along the PDF
All right,
and be in
thank
touch
you.
soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Jennifer, I think that was really helpful. I had remembered that we had 3 options, but didn't know what each of the options entailed.
And I wasn't part of 2019, so I did learn some things on this as well. I mean, I've looked at them, but they explained it a little bit more clear.
And obviously there's some things they've got even in option 3 where they gutted out the inside of this building. We obviously wouldn't have to do that. Would we have to change the front? No, wouldn't have to do that.
Just need to move out.
We need to move to create volume of space at the back of what we have right now. That's what we need to do.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions of folks here in the meeting? You guys are getting to hear a lot today.
Gensler is independent, standalone architects, or?
Yes.
They work for us.
Oh, I see.
We work with them throughout the whole West. We've worked with them in a couple airports here in New Mexico.
Okay.
That, like I said, we worked with them at Farmington, Four Corners, Closier's House, Terminal, sorry, Gallup. So we're working with them a lot of places, and we do Reno. Just so you guys know, we do Reno Steadfast as well. That's one of our airports. So yeah, we worked with them. They have a lot of extensive airport experience. They worked at Eagle Vale, Jackson Hole, Steamboat. They built some really big things out there. So they have a lot of airport experience and TSA experience. Foreign Trade Zone, we worked with them on a whole bunch of things. Thank you, sir.
You didn't do Santa Fe too, did you?
We didn't do Santa Fe. We're not taking any of our
Thank
lives.
God.
That's not us. That's a different animal. That's not us.
Well, like I think we learned here, the third alternative is the alternative that we're gonna have to go with. And a bunch of the interior or front facade stuff, obviously that's just not gonna be in the cards right away. So, all right, any other questions before we move on to, the project list again? Hearing none, Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay, I've handed you out some larger sheets of current projects that we have going completely, and then some that we're looking at for 25. So we've got, as you know, we have the master plan that's in progress. That'll be completed in December. We've got the southeast water line. The design is being done now. That should be completed and ready to go to bid May and open in June and construct in August. That's the one we're working with the county on. They're holding the funds anyway. Strategic plan, we're still on that one. That will be completed in August of this year. So those first three projects, the design won't be carried over, but when we'll have to do the construction in 25 for the water line. The airfield lighting, that's a 3-year project, state funded 90% of that. And he just left here from his 2 weeks of being here. So he's been here 4 times now this year for 2 weeks. And I've been sending out his reports and what he's finding. So he'll be back next month for our inspection to meet with our FAA inspector when we do our light inspections and kind of show him what we're trying to achieve out there. PER runway 1735, it's the engineering report that has been sent to the FAA. They still haven't responded on the design mix of what we're going to do with that runway. It's either going to be a mill and fill or a complete reconstruction. It's all depending on funding.
PER stands for
Professional engineer report. And so we're kind of, this next year, once we get that report, we'll be able to go to design. And we have, okay, the BLM pit. That is under design now. Design's probably 95% completed already. We should be able to bid in May, open in June. That one is an agreement in their lease agreement that we will build this, and then they will refund us up to $300,000. The next one is the engineering design, and that's for the vault. And that will be completed in June. We could bid in July, and we do have a BIL grant for that, which is $2 million. And we bid in July, we could construct August, September.
and BIL stands for
bipartisan infrastructure law.
from the federal government. Then?
Yes, yes. The sweeper has been on order. We should receive that in September. We have a MAP grant, which is phase 1 design of the apron concrete. I will pass these out, but if I could get them back, this is what they're anticipating to do on the concrete here in front of the terminal. That's in front of the terminal. And then over on the ramp in front of Aplite, pretty much from the
the SRE building down to F-Light.
So,
And that would be to resurface and reconstruct all the concrete. If it's asphalt, we'll mill and fill it. Am I correct?
Mill and fill, yeah, mill and fill on the asphalt.
This is associated with which line?
That is associated with the Grant 37, the 2023 3-35-0035. Yeah, Apron Concrete Mill over.
Row 11.
and that's a done deal.
The design is complete. We're ready to bid that one.
The reason I'm asking if that's directly in front.
We intend on doing half of the ramp, and then once that, where we can still park the aircraft on the other side, and then once that is complete, we flip it and do the other side.
Except that if we have to build something out there, then what? We have to tear it up.
Well, we
again?
won't, this is on the ramp right now. If you build, you're probably not gonna go out that far.
There's a train. Well, it looks to me like we-
I'm anticipating that you're probably gonna go out, you're gonna remove the canopy and you're gonna go out probably as far as the concrete stucco, is that?
Yeah. No, you're correct. We may encroach a little bit on the new one, but we don't anticipate going that far out with the.
Okay.
All right. And with this apron project, it's more of a rehab. We're replacing some panels, partial panels, but a lot of ball and crack rerouting of all the joints and stuff. Basically, it's a rehab. It's not a full panel reconstruction.
Okay.
Yeah. That'd take probably $20 million to do that.
Because I like concrete. The next item is basically the same thing, it's just a different area. So we've got, pass those down. Now that one, we did start, we have, they did start on some design work on it, but put a stop to it because now we're looking at other areas that may be better to do. We have an area down by Baldwin, and I'd like to use some of these funds on our ramp to surface that. So we don't have a good design on this yet because we keep flipping back and forth.
Is this just asphalt?
No, some of it would be concrete as well, asphalt and concrete.
When we originally set this project up was
Oh, I know, but
when you guys were gonna do the doghouse. And there's a piece of apron there that was torn out.
Yeah,
That
for
we
the-
used as a crunch pad way back when it was destroyed. So the city removed that piece of concrete. We're gonna refill that in conjunction with building that doghouse out on that side of it. But then that all changed with administration, so.
Well, I don't think it was just administration. I think
Just the concept of it.
the customer need
Correct.
was not there, so, yeah.
ready? Keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going, okay. The next one is a state appropriations grant. Was for the rub hanger. Basically, all that says is for infrastructure. We did do some geotech on it. We got those funds back from the state. We did took $25,000 to put the gate in over at Trans-Aero at Alert. And we're waiting for payment back from the state on that. As I understand, those funds may be used and moved to the Southeast Waterline project. But that's not my decision.
So this really isn't terminal expansion, this is terminal update.
This is just on the rub.
You're on the wrong thing.
We're
We're on the rub.
Okay. It's almost at the
Yeah.
bottom quarter there. So
So there's 4.8 million still on that one that can be used for an infrastructure project. But that one is tied to jobs. No, it's not.
No.
Yep, no, that one's not. It's the EDA one. It's tied to jobs. So,
I'll wait till you get through them.
okay. The next one is the 84 infrastructure. That's the EDA project. That one is tied to jobs. There's 2.78 million in that. What I would ask is if we have tried very hard to find a project to put those funds to. So I need your assistance. If you have a better idea or an idea where we can use these funds, I'd like to hear them. We do have a conference call with EDA tomorrow. So if I have any ideas, if you have any ideas, you can throw at us. We will.
So that's the state economic development.
This is no.
Federal.
And this is 100%. There's no match. So definitely do not want to lose this grant.
Inside or outside?
this is the doghouse.
Either, yeah. That does have some jobs tied to it. That one does, and I believe it was 40 new jobs. It talked about creation, but when our last visit with her, I don't think creation's a big, creation is 40 new. Retention was, I think she would waive that as long as we come up with some jobs.
Right, yeah, so
I'm confused.
We don't
So
own
this
that
is-
building. We have to own the building. I'm
So
sorry.
this is federal money, the 2.87?
Yes.
Yeah, the 2.87 was a federal grant to build the doghouse expansion, but it's insufficient for the expansion.
Right.
It was not interested.
Right.
But on the application, we said we were going to get 40 new jobs for it, and that's the core of what we're going to be held to. And every idea we've come up with is simply not getting 40 jobs. It's just not there.
Even if we use some of these funds, for instance, the building over off of, the blue building off of Hobson Road, which needs all kinds of stuff done to it.
But we don't have any jobs for it yet. We need to have somebody, and we did look at that with the last customer, but they selected a different site.
Okay.
We offered that to them. Jenna offered it to us. Twice.
All right.
Okay. So then following terminal expansion, we have the 1.980 available. That's the state automatically takes out 1% for art. Yeah. There you go. Matter of fact, they sent me a thing, want me to. I got some money to spend, I don't know where to spend it. The Air Service Assistance Program, that one will be closed. We did get the final invoices Friday. And then the second page that you have are just some projects that I need to consider for 25 in the budget. So ILEA needs a roof replacement. Building 1050 needs resurfacing. Parking lot, HVAC. We have plumbing issues at 91. Building 1166 needs roof. Hangar 1536 needs a roof. I've listed a maintenance vehicle to replace our oldest vehicle is a 2004. I can't push it anymore. We still need to budget some money for the remainder of 112 demo. And I've listed building 93 bathrooms. And then we have some Hangar 84, the wind claim, Hangar 85 wind claim. These are 23s. 1083, the wind claim on the metal, and then wind claim on the building.
I thought we had funding for all of this wind claim.
Yeah, there should
We
be
do.
insurance
We have to,
proceeds.
we have to budget for it because that's still considered a reimbursement. We aren't paid all of that up front. We have to budget for it and then they pay us back.
So it's not all, after reimbursement, what will we be out of pocket? That's kind of what
Our deductible.
he may have to come up with the money for a few months until the state can reimburse you. But
Mhm.
what's the net out of pocket gonna be is what I think the city needs to know.
$2,500 per claim.
But that's our deductible, so what's it gonna cost us to get them repaired?
You need 10,000 to cover the deductible, is that what I'm understanding?
It's per claim. So $2,500 for not each building, each incident.
But all these are done on the same claim?
Yeah, each incident. So there are 2 different wind claims, possibly 3 at this point.
And that doesn't include 84.
It's already been taken care of. That deductible's already been paid.
Okay.
Since we're talking about wind claims, talk to us about the involvement.
Actually, Mac's on the list to talk about the recent wind damage down the road here.
Okay.
So if you want to jump to that, or that, it is on the agenda. It's item 16 on the agenda.
We can hold off on this one.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Yes, sir.
So those are the projects that we have ongoing and things we're looking at for next fiscal year.
Jeff, I did have one question on that very first line item, the state share for the master plan of 22,658.
Mhm.
Is that already been allocated or? 'Cause it looks like it runs out next.
She is extended that one. That one has been extended.
25?
Yes. And I believe it's January of 25, because we anticipate it being completed in December.
So Jennifer, the other thing that, on it says terminal expansion, but that, 1.98 that we still have,
Yes, sir.
that funding, considering apparently what we're up against to try to do something back here. I guess I'd like the group to at least consider one of the things that per the presentation that was provided, one of the things that was not addressed at all was baggage claim area. In fact, that was something that my understanding was we're just gonna have to live with it.
No, I understood that there was an enlargement on one of them, and let me see which one it was. Isn't that one? Let me see. That's 2. Is it option 3?
So option 3 would say we would build here temporarily for the initial is what they suggested, and then this baggage claim we'd still operate under this one.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If this has to come to pass, there's probably only gonna be one wing added to the terminal to add space for security lines and for secure areas.
Does that make sense?
So that means that the baggage claim area that currently exists is likely gonna be as good as we're gonna have until we can come up with some more money. So having said that, for sure, that bathroom down there, as we've talked about, can be enlarged. We can take in some of that other space. We need to get with the tenant that has that office space down there. And I sure think that's something that the 3 of us, or if Matt's still on there, need to reach some agreement on. Because it seems to me like no matter what, if we're going to end up going with the third option on this, that can certainly be something
where we wouldn't waste a penny to improve that restroom down there. John, are you and Sean familiar with what we're talking about?
In the baggage claim area?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, to utilize some of this money for a benefit to what we're gonna have, that's something that I don't see us wasting any of the funds to redesign what we've got down there and adding to that bathroom.
Were there any plans in this
No.
to expand that at all?
No, they weren't asked at that time to do that.
You can barely turn around.
We have talked, we have talked to a contractor and he was going to try to take a look at it and see. He did. Oh, did he?
Yeah, I've had a report back. So the contractor has looked at it. He gave me a preliminary pencil drawing that would we would bump out, we would create a little bit of a walking hallway so we wouldn't have to interfere with, if you're familiar with the downstairs, there's the double doors that come in. So the entrance to the bathrooms would be on the inside of the building. Correct. And then it would be an open standard ADA hallway with an open end, allowing for ADA for both men and women. So allowing that space there. And that would just absorb the office space that the car rental company is currently using, but they're just using it as a storage room. So I don't see any hiccups for us to remove that from their leasehold with an amendment. I'm waiting for the cost, and then I will have an overlay as well, but I don't have the complete cost yet.
I think we need to see the drawing that he comes up with. I don't know that we need to have Armstrong bless that. I would think we could bless that. I know it won't be a major portion of that 2 million, but at least that's something that we know we wouldn't waste any money on if we did that.
And the current condition of the bathrooms, one, they are not ADA compliant, and two, we have leaking pipes. It's not a very attractive restroom on either side, men or women.
Okay.
Yeah, let's put a portaloo over there. That'd be
That
good.
would be nice, thank you.
Well, I'll even throw in two. Let's see, that leaves me
Look what you started.
$130,000. I like that idea. Thank you, Mayor. I'll make that dog hunt.
Okay,
Okay,
Jennifer.
191.
Do you have anything else on projects we need to walk through?
Not currently, no.
So Jenna, you can get us something so we can at least look at it next month on the bathrooms downstairs in the luggage claim area.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Yes, John, go ahead.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is Mike Espiritu. I didn't see on the project list the ramp work that's needed for Trans Zero. Is that on the list, or did I just miss it?
No, it's not on the list. I can list it. But if you start looking at all the amounts that we have to come up with, we don't have kind of money that I need to spend on grants. So I'm still looking for a grant for that.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to list it so you lose sight of it. I mean, if we don't fund it, we don't fund it. But if we don't list it, then we'll forget about it or whatever. I think we need to put it on there so we watch it.
Can any of that money be used for the appropriation we had tied to the 45 jobs for the 84? The stuff we can do over there to bring those jobs into.
We have to we have to come up with a project that's going to be 2.78, the majority of that money. Or you're just going to turn it back in.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, John, go ahead.
Jennifer,
Yes, sir.
there is a question on the second row. The federal grant amount that you show is 2,275,284. It appears that that is overstated and represents a remaining balance of the first $5 million that we received.
That was what we had prior to our last payout. So right now, the balance is 1.963.
Well, on the flip side of this is what the county shows as disbursements.
But
I don't
that
know.
payout's not on here.
I'm sorry.
That payout that we just did is not on here. We just did one Friday.
Okay, well that would
doesn't include it.
indicate the amount is less,
Right.
not more.
Well, that's what we had when we started this project, phase 2. That was the balance for phase 2. Right now, after we made that payment, there is 1.963 available. The little under comments, and I updated that right after I made the payment, and I verified with the county what it was.
There was one thing as far as the cash goes on that thing, on the water line. When we did the water line, it seems to me like we spent about $3 million doing the water line. And the state agreed to give us back $4 million in EDA funds or something. They what's his name, the state, with some of that money, what they always give the state guy that comes down here, used to live here.
From
So
EDC.
we did have, there was 2 NOOs that were still open. I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Mark Roper, that's who it was.
There's 2 NOOs that were open with still balance on them. And so I've asked the county to rescind those. That would probably be about 1.7 million that'll go back in. They were still holding it against or for those contractors, but at this point in time.
Again, this details what the county shows has been dispersed against the original 5 million. You can't tell that that was the first 5 million that Senator got, or the mayor got.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I took this over after one left, and I've been working with the girls from the county. Their sheet looks just like mine.
Well, if you subtract what's been expended, the 3 million that you mentioned, we have $1,990,000 left.
So
thereabouts. And I guess the question is, what is it going to take to finish that water line?
Well, that's what I understood. The rub hanker funds were going to be moved into that now. That's not my decision to make, and I don't know how that. That's
$4,750,000. Is it going to take that much?
We don't have a bid yet from the engineers. I want to say the engineers kind of estimated that was about 2.3, but now they've been asked to put in a second trench for sewer, and so it is going to increase those costs.
Well, if you say there's 6.7 million left, will that do it? I mean,
I'm not an engineer, I don't know, but the council has to still make that decision of moving those funds from one project to another, and I don't know that they have been asked.
And I guess what I'm leading up to is, do you work close enough with Janie so you're in agreement with what her records show as far as these numbers are concerned?
No.
Okay.
I can't get appointments with Janie. I try. She's busy.
Well,
So
I'm sure the
I work
city
with
can
the
help with
county,
that.
I just work with the county on this particular grant and make sure that my match with the county. And
We're a part of the city.
so,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then the reallocation, so original allocation of money to RUB was because we had an encumbrance deadline that we weren't, and we didn't have an actual project. So moving it to the pipeline and sewer line is not going to be, it's just a resolution that'll go with next year's budget, assuming we have the numbers in time.
Could potentially happen. If we never get to that kind of bank bid, we could possibly get it done before the next budget cycle. Although we're gonna start discussing that here in the next week or two.
yeah, so what they've told me, what James has told me is it's 60% complete on the design. They would be ready to bid in May and open in June and start construction in August. And so I would say
Well,
September by the time they get their materials in play.
But it's an unknown. We don't know how much it's gonna cost. Based on, if you just use simple math, phase one was so far and it cost us this much dollars and this is gonna take however much, you could figure it out. But anybody that's got those figures, I certainly don't.
But adding a sewer line's a whole different
That's,
line item.
yeah, they doubled the two parts and that's what the sewer line's gonna cost. Well, plus because as the elevation of the airport is the way that it is, we're not gonna change that. There's gonna have to be a lift station put in.
Correct.
I have no idea what that stuff costs.
The station.
But you can lay the pipe and till we get somebody plugged in over there, then you can worry about the lift station. And there are some discussions about some people that are making some minor overtures about maybe thinking about doing something over there.
There's nothing committed.
No, absolutely not. Okay. Here's why I phrased it the way I did.
Okay. All right, any other questions on the project list right now? At least we can read this one generally, Jennifer. One thing that would help me and maybe some of the rest of the folks is if we put a line item over there.
Road numbers,
Yeah,
self-refer to them.
so we could go to that. That would be beneficial to us. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Go ahead.
This has got 25 stuff. I don't see anything in here of future plans for 26 other than this terminal thing, to even get started doing planning. You cannot plan from one budget year to the next budget year. You need to have, what are we gonna do the following year and even into 27? I don't see any of this here.
You're generally correct, but I think there are some things on the second page.
And I will see, I will,
This second page stuff,
it just,
it's nickel and dime stuff.
I will add my FAA projects that are slated for 26 on here before Thursday's meeting.
That would be helpful.
And we've got, Mike Spiritu brought up another one.
Right, I've got it. I'm gonna add it.
Okay.
I'll add it to
And
this.
that's
report.
not inexpensive.
No, it's not. And there's some overtures about some changes of plan that have been made, with dealing with potentially one of our clients that's on the airfield. We don't know what that's gonna do, but there's been some overtures made that this needs to be looked at and addressed. There is so many unknowns out there. And I'm starting a budget cycle here in a couple of weeks. And I can't just exist from what's gonna be in 25. Because I'm looking at this sheet and I'm going, Jennifer saying, well, we don't have any money to throw at this stuff to get reimbursed. Well, that's important. And most of these grants, or a good percentage of them, are a reimbursable situation. You got to expend the money, and the cost of money is the cost of money. If I spend $2 million on this project and it takes me 120 days to get reimbursed, I've got to consider the cost of that money for that 120 days. And I don't have enough information to be able to make even an educated guess. It's absolutely a wag right now.
Well, it's a good thing that you're out here and we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I'm fixing to be busy for the next couple of weeks, and they're gonna lock me in a closet down there and feed me peanuts.
But even if you're busy, you can contact Jennifer pretty much anytime.
Yeah, I got secret phone numbers for her.
All right.
Had to get her down, put my foot in her throat to get it, but I got it.
All right.
They got Sam's Hampton peanuts on sale at Sam's, and you can buy them by the bag, 6 pounds for the bag.
Well, get me plenty, Mayor.
I've got them.
They tell me you're gonna have the key to the door, so.
You have to have a secret phone number to do that.
No. We're gonna get a windfall, 18,000.
All right.
Okay, well, we talked about the EDA grant already as part of the EDA grant, the Hangar 84. So
Right.
that's where I was going to ask is if you could come up with projects that we can consider. Like I said, we have a conference call with them tomorrow, and she'd kind of like an update on where we are with projects or with that particular project.
So those projects, and we're talking about 40 to 45 new jobs.
40, at least 40.
If it's helpful, I can forward the original grant application because we kind of need to stay close to that same structure for the amendment or the request to amend it. So you can at least see the parameters of which we were approved for on the first EDA grant. And this is CARES money. So this was federal funded for coronavirus.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So on that EDA grant we're speaking of, I've got a copy of the estimated jobs to be created. It says 45. Just so it's what it says in the form. I've got it right here in front of me. So just to be clear, it's not 40. It looks like it's 45. The retained jobs that Jennifer mentioned earlier, it's actually has 30 in there. And if that could be waived, that would be great. But I do want to comment to the group that I am in discussion with Project Store out there about their building because they wanted to build a new building and they would probably meet that job number. So I'm waiting to get a return call back from them. Jennifer, you may want to mention that to your call tomorrow. That
okay, I was just going to ask you if I could.
Yeah, the EDC is working with a company that will consider doing that, and that way we'll use all those funds. It's going to be a lot more than $2 million, so we're at almost $3 million. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is that a storage facility?
Yeah, it's a warehouse distribution center for aircraft parts, much like we have now. In fact, they're already here in Roswell. They're over leasing space in the bus plant. That company, we've been talking to them for quite a while. They're the ones that we brought in from Miami. I brought all those Boeing parts in from Seattle. So they're going to eventually run out of their lease at the bus plant, and they're going to have to be looking for a place. So I've been talking to them about that as far as a new facility for quite some time. But with the sale of that building, I think there would be even more. I won't say in a hurry, but a little more pressed to do that. So let me get with them. You know, they're the company that's got people from all over the world, you know, their C-suites everywhere, so it's hard to get a hold of them, but they're generally will return a call back to me through my app, so I will let you know. Thank you.
Okay, we're at an hour and a half already, so let's move forward. Jennifer?
Okay, so I've spoken to you about the BLM taxi lane. That'll be complete mid-April, mid-May, open June, construct August, September, once fire season's over. The airport lighting project, that's going very well. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for another 2-week stint. Strategic plan, we are fixing to have our next meeting on the 17th for discussing mission and vision. And the following meeting will be an in-person meeting. That should be completed in August. Master plan, they've already started on the next working papers. As far as I know, he probably received only about 2 to 3 comments back on the second working paper. So he's just moving on. State appropriation grants, we've discussed the water line and the terminal improvements. BLM slurry pit is pretty much in line. It will be bid with the taxi lane, and both those projects will be conducted at the same time once fire season's over. Yes, sir.
Can we go back to state appropriations item 2, emergency generator? Understand when the power went out, the flight couldn't depart. Where would we? Of course, the tower has an emergency generator, don't they?
We have a location in the back over here that has a slab already, and
So my question is, we just need a generator here at the terminal?
Right.
And that would have allowed the flight to depart, okay?
Yes, the machines would operate, the TSA equipment would work.
I would think.
So I moved that to the first, because I had been talking with Mr. McLeod, and they have a program coming, but it's still coming. It's not there yet, where they would, for 10 years, they would do all the maintenance, installation. Our electric bill would go up a little bit, but they would do all that, and then after 10 years, it becomes ours.
I
And
think that's something we need to pursue.
Are there requirements on how old that generator is?
that would be a brand new. We don't
I know
have
if we
one.
got an
Yeah.
old one. I mean,
So,
I don't know how hard it is to set it up.
I don't know. I did reach out to engineering and asked if we had anybody on staff who could tell me what size of a generator we need for the terminal, because I'm kind of we're having these outages a little too much. And I've never had them in my past life. We didn't have them like that. So I haven't heard back from engineering, but I did reach out to see if there's somebody else that could tell us.
So
You have a used one?
You can find them. You can find them in government surplus. I don't know. I don't have any idea how many it takes, how much electricity it takes to run this building. You should be able to get some idea, I would think, from the size of the panel that runs this building.
We have multiple panels on the building.
Oh, add them up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jennifer, when you say we haven't typically had these kind of outages, I know Sean mentioned that ENMUR was shut down last week.
Right, we were out 1 hour here.
Okay.
But in my past life, when I'm thinking back what's happened when I was here prior to, we didn't have any outages. So I don't know if the town is growing more. The transformers are getting old. I don't know. But we've had a lot of them this last year.
So just so everybody understands, this generator that you're talking about, that XL Energy, which is brand new, is willing to move out here, take care of for 10 years for us. It's going to cost the city a little bit extra. And I don't know how much, I don't know how much a little bit means.
He couldn't
But-
tell me at that time either. I asked that question, but once we go LED out here, we will be saving a lot of money on lights, and it'll work out.
So maybe some offsetting things. But that generator would preclude what happened and the flight didn't get out of here on time.
Right.
So what do we need to do? What does the city need to do to coordinate with Xcel Energy to make this happen?
Well, I've reached out to him. They're still working that program. They're
The
just
program's
not,
not
they're not
live
there
yet.
to go online yet. But he knows we're interested.
All right, well, he should be, so he just lost his wife.
Right, yes.
So he should be back next week or someone. I don't know whether it has to be Mike to make that decision. But I sure think that unless there's opposition, I think that's a no-brainer. We just need to go.
That's why I
make
moved
that-
it up to the first item
All right,
on
we just
the
need to go
agenda
make that
because
happen. So I would encourage city staff to go figure out how to make that
Let me ask a silly question. We talking about lighting this building, or is there more to it than that?
it would just be this building and it would operate the entire building.
Just this
Equipment.
building.
TSA stuff,
You have to have all the-
scanners.
Yeah, all that stuff, yeah,
Have
everything in this building.
No runway, taxiway lighting?
Those have their own generator.
Okay,
Bravo and 321 are on their own generator.
okay.
Okay, good point, John. Thanks for bringing that
And I just might add, when he says it's not online yet, we've been waiting 2 years for a generator for a data server backup.
up. Okay. We need to get ours before Sean.
He could wait another. I'll reach out to Mike again and see if he's got any updates.
Okay. Does he have, does Mike have a number 2 at Excel? Or do you know?
I don't know. I'm sure he does.
Yeah, because he won't be there this week.
Right.
I wouldn't either.
The current pad that we have is expected to receive natural gas too. It's not an electrical. So it's naturally gas fed. And it's already there, piped, ready to go. We
So that's.
We
that's an
just need
advantage
to
also.
plug one in.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, QuickBooks, Jenna.
So the airport has officially removed ourselves from doing any billing out of QuickBooks effective March 25th. Everything is being invoiced out of Tyler Munis at this point. We've started receiving payments in to apply to those invoices. Lisa's working through making sure we get the correct permissions for the function of receiving payment. We've had some hiccups due to the implementation of Tyler in its initial stages. And so we're trying to get ourselves to where every single person out here has the abilities and accesses to run the software appropriately. There was a slight hiccup this first month going out. We were sending invoices by email through QuickBooks. We've attempted to replicate that, but in redundancy, we went ahead and sent out the papers as well, just to make sure that the billing was received. So we have received some payment from the invoices that were emailed, but not everybody received the email. So in this next week, I'll be emailing all of the tenants that received those invoices and verify whether they received the email from us or not. The email does come from not Jay Lanfo or L. Bennett. It will come from Tyler.Munis. So it may go into junk mail. So we're going to just have to work through making sure everybody's opening those.
Yeah, what's been missing for the tenants is past due statement, or if there's something that wasn't paid by when it was due, what's past due by unpaid invoice?
So the current,
Hopefully that's been implemented as a part of this change.
the current invoices, so that is step 2 of the migration, which will be to clear all of the outstanding debt, either via Hessa's office and Janie, because it's beyond time to be able to collect it, and or whatever litigation they need to go through to collect funds. And then anything that is in there, we will be migrating. So basically, we'll be creating invoices for all of that outstanding debt that needs to be collected. So the receivables will show. It'll probably, we haven't determined yet exactly if we're going to do one invoice that itemizes all of the QuickBooks invoice numbers just to get the copies to match. But it will require a lot of data entry on our side to get that done. So we really have just hit phase 1 of getting our migration started, and then that outstanding debt will be in our phase 2 of that migration.
Do you think you figured out why the emails didn't go out to those that didn't receive them?
I don't know if Jose gave you an answer.
It was just permissions, really. When they set us up, they were setting us up as individuals instead of a team. So I had more authority in there than Jenna versus anyone else. And so mine went out without a hitch and hers were stuck in a cloud, really. But another thing on your question, I don't know if that's exactly what you were asking, but on each invoice, when you get it, it's going to show you what's due for that invoice, but it is also going to show you on there your customer balance. So if you had one you may have missed, it will show your whole account balance on top of that. One of the things we are working a little bit on is the description. As of right now, the invoices don't really allow us too much of a description. So that's one of the things we are working on. So how QuickBooks would say your building number, if you had multiple buildings, it would say each building by, all that information. We're having a little bit of a trouble with Tyler giving you as much information on that invoice. Yeah. So that's just us working with Tyler and IT, trying to get it to give us enough. Previously, until we got hooked up with Tyler, there was no invoicing even set up in the system. So people were using Tyler, but they weren't sending out Tyler invoices. So everything that's being set up is really what we've been initiating, trying to create. So it's kind of a work in progress.
And I guess the only other add I have for that is QuickBooks will need to remain effective as long as our audit is going on, because they have to be in that system as well. So we did receive 3 more requests as of last Friday of large spreadsheets that I'm going to have to go through line by line, and give explanation for a discrepancy or difference or a lease language that's not matching. So still working through that additional audit that we're going through, but it's cumbersome, but we'll get it done.
Is this part of the city audit?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Corn, you had a question.
I was just curious, we talked a lot about invoicing. What's happening with the rest of your bookkeeping system? Is it getting migrated to Tyler also?
Yes.
Okay.
So I did my first deposit yesterday, but it's been a little crazy because the permissions, again, we found that I don't have the full permission. So I'm applying payments to invoices, but I'm not being able to release it. So it was sitting in a cloud, but I've been working this morning all with Jose and Tatiana and Tyler to get that fixed. But yes, the payments are going in there as well.
I'm not shaking my head about your deal. It's just the whole Tyler thing is proven to be very problematic.
The reason we were told was from Tyler is that when it was initially set up with the system, they just started using it. They didn't fully set it up to its potential. And so that's why we're running into problems.
I've been listening to this static. Yeah, I understand the problem. And we're having discussions on what we're going to do to fix it.
Okay, we've got a question from Marcel.
What's the time frame on this issue?
As far as what?
As far as invoices not going out. So
Last week, they would have been emailed March 25th, and then they were mailed. No. That's why I won't allow it to lapse. I'll make sure I reach out to your AP to make sure all
Your
of those
people have paid. Yours is the first payment that I did process. Aerocel's, yeah, they were the first payment that I did do. So yes, you got them. Okay, good.
Yay, Ron.
Yes.
Yes. Which is one of the questions that I'd ask tomorrow.
Yes.
How do we make sure that that invoice belongs to that facility?
Yes,
Sure.
and that's one of the things we're working on with the descriptions.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
huh?
What we paid you.
Okay.
Thank you. Our system takes the email and automatically uploads that invoice and email into the system.
So what we've been,
Make sure that it wasn't getting blocked there. So.
yeah, what we've been trying to do is in the description, because we have to go to a whole different setup. You do the invoice here, you send it out in a whole different tab. But in the description of the email, we've been trying to put the notes in there, but most people are used to see them on the invoice itself. But it is in the description notes.
I think our problem is the way that our invoice capture system works.
Mhm.
It sends to invoicecapture@concur.com or something.
Yeah.
And so what we see is an invoice, the attachment. I don't think we see the email.
Okay, so that's,
information.
yeah. We're definitely working on that to try to get it fixed.
And I think I did find a way where at the bottom of the invoice, it'll show like a box. And so what I have done going forward is I will say rent building 92, and so they'll go directly down below each other so that you'll be able to match that to the first line item on the invoice. And then the second line on the description will match the second line on the invoice.
So any help you can give
Yes.
these folks would be appreciated.
I thought the invoice was with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay,
you know you're the A, so you started at the very beginning of the data entry. It's A.
anything else came from the group on item number 8? If not, next item on the list is the rent abatement policy. Mike, do you have access to that?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
You remember the gist of that, and the gist of it was the last paragraph under financial arrangements. And I'll read this to you. Monthly rent abatement payment amounts will not exceed 50% of negotiated rent, which in fact means that each tenant, if they improve their property, city agrees to that, they understand what the amount is, then the tenant on a monthly basis would still be required to provide 50% of the rent until the abatement cleared up the cost of what they put into the building. And so, Mike, would you like to state your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So absolutely. The concern I have is some of these necessary repairs that need to be performed on a lot of the tenants' buildings and hangars can be pretty expensive. And we all know that the city doesn't have always the funds to pay for that. If a company desires to get it done and pay for it themselves, I think it puts them in an awkward position to only get half of their lease abated every month. It might take years for them to get the entire payments what they paid abated. So that can, and I don't know that maybe there should be a dollar amounts or something, change the policy. But I think if we're asking tenants to consider doing that and they're willing to put the money into it and the city doesn't, I think we should, work out a better return on that, those funds that company has decided to do. I spoke with one company that was very interested in doing that, but the payoff was so long that it just didn't make sense for them. I believe I talked with Hess about this. We talked, and I don't recall the entire conversation because it's been a minute, but I don't know that. I know that we have a policy in the city council. It's a one-page document, if I remember right. I would like to suggest we consider modifying that that policy where we can abate those lease payments for companies that are investing back into our buildings in the city of Roswell at their expense a little sooner than it is now.
Yeah, Mike, I read that agreement. This is Matt, and it seems pretty cumbersome. It didn't look like the effort to do any repairs for a tenant would be worth their time. It was just too cumbersome. You had to have 3 bids, city council approval, airport approval, and then of course the repayout was kind of slow. And so yeah, that policy definitely, I agree with Mike. It needs to be relooked at. It needs to be more efficient, more pro tenant than pro city.
Thanks to both of you. We've got the city attorney here. Hess, have you got some comments that could guide a discussion here on this?
Sure. I mean, I guess there's 2 components. So the easier thing from the legal perspective is just to write this into the lease. So this is a program to take less rent from somebody after they've entered into a lease with the city for items that they are not otherwise already required to maintain. Historically speaking, the city has sometimes, especially in the past 4 to 5 years, given rent abatement to people who have not in fact improvements that their lease didn't require them to otherwise make. So we want to be careful to not, and I'm sure the audit will find some of these. That said, this is just a resolution. So if a tenant comes to us and says, hey, we want to do X, Y, or Z, all we got to do is send it to the council with a resolution saying that this rent abatement is not subject to 13-28 or 13-28, and that's it. There's no reason we can't ever strike a deal with somebody. The 3 quote thing is a procurement question that probably just got thrown in because that's what the city does for anything more than 20,000, and I think it's a good business practice for any. You guys probably get multiple quotes anyway, right? So I don't see the actual burdensome nature of it. I don't see it. The burdensome nature is that we're a government. It's not that, it's gonna, if we're amending a lease rate, it has to go to council. That's just how it has to be, unless it's a 1-year lease worth less than $60,000, in which case the manager has authority to do it concurrent with the mayor.
So the process would be that a tenant has a bathroom that's not satisfactory and they need to spend $40,000 on updating the bathroom, and they come to the airport staff and say, here's what we'd like to do. What kind of a rent, if we do this, what kind of a rent abatement can we get? So you're saying that even that would have to go to the city council to approve that?
Yeah, because it's a lease amendment, effectively.
So
that's the core of the issue. So that we could change the ordinance to give the manager more authority to do that, or the director, but I don't think that for historic reasons that would probably be frowned upon, at least for a few more years.
So the 50% reimbursement rate that's in this resolution really doesn't have an impact on what we're talking about here?
No, like I said, it's only because it's a resolution. It's normal contracts just need a majority vote of the quorum. Any resolution needs 6 votes total. So if you wanted to do a lease, or if you want to do a form of rent abatement in contravention of this, you just need to make sure you have 6 votes total instead of a majority of the quorum. And that's never been an issue with an airport lease. Most airport leases are on consent agenda.
So what I hear you saying is changing this resolution won't really change.
It won't speed it up.
Want to accomplish.
Resolutions are kind of binding internally to the city only. And when I say kind of, it's because an ordinance holds people. It's a law of general applicability. Resolutions are the internal administrative laws of the city. And so when 6 of the 11 say that you don't need to listen to it, you don't.
So when the tenant has a problem, they fix it. City doesn't put any funds into it. They come to this, and this is all done
with knowledge of everybody concerned. So the city staff then goes to legal and says, this tenant has put 40,000 into this, and they want to get 100% reimbursement of that. They're paying 5,000 a month for their rent, so they want to go 8 months without paying any rent. That obviously doesn't comply with this resolution.
Right, so we just kick it to council in a resolution form saying, be it resolved that this contract says this. It's a new superseding resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, this is, and again, I'd prefer to couch these as leases, because the way pretty much every lease that we write is, shows general maintenance falls on the tenant. So unless the tenant wants to really improve the property beyond normal maintenance, and again, if you look at some of the stuff that Mr. Stark was doing, general maintenance was getting reimbursed, even though the contract, a couple people over on that side of the, were just doing their maintenance and then suddenly getting reimbursed or getting a lease abatement for it. Yeah. So that's what, so like what we did with Transarrow, I thought was a lot cleaner. They were new tenants, so we couldn't hold them for any problems with the building. They made significant improvements, and their lease was adjusted, and their rent schedule developed accordingly.
Okay, so again then, there's no benefit to changing this resolution.
No, if we can always do a case by case.
Okay.
So yeah, if Kavu comes over and says, yeah, we want to, we're just going to do the roof ourselves. Okay, yeah, let's we'll amortize it, and we'll give you the appropriate abatement pending council approval.
So Jenna, do you have any questions on what we're talking about here?
No.
So does Jenna is she the decider for whether it's general maintenance or updating the property by the tenant?
Yeah, so that depends on the terms of the lease, but generally speaking, anything structural falls on the city, everything else falls on the tenant. So the standard lease is going to say the tenant is responsible for all plumbing up to replacement, all electrical up to replacement, anything above normal wear and tear. Those are kind of the three core things we look at.
All right, do we have any tenants with any questions on this then?
I have a question.
Okay.
So is this from the date this is signed forward, or can you go back in the past for certain improvements and request innovate?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be prohibited by state law, because we can't retro. Yeah, and that's actually something important. Before an improvement is made that is outside of the confines of the contract, we need to agree to it ahead of time, so it's not a retroactive payment.
Okay, any other questions? Mike, do you have some questions on this?
Mr. Chairman, Hess, just got one quick question. If a tenant has a lease that's not current, that's in holdover or whatever the term is it still applicable or not? Is it a different mechanism?
If it's a new lease, it's a new lease.
But if they haven't signed a new lease, if they're a current tenant but they haven't signed a new lease, does it apply?
It depends if they are simply extending their old lease or creating a new one. I know that sounds like a funny answer, but it really depends on the form. So they would just elect to have a new lease, effectively.
There hasn't been a new lease signed, so they're in a holdover position, which means the effect of the lease that they had prior to that lease going out of date
is still in effect.
That's still in effect. Okay.
Right, they're still responsible for. Yeah, so I guess what I will say is I would have a hard time recommending to the city council let's say a tenant who didn't fix their bathrooms for. Let's use an example. Let's say there's a tenant who has been in a building for 26 years and has not improved their electrical whatsoever, and then in negotiating a new lease, they want us to replace the electrical. I would never, ever, ever cogitate about sending that to the council. That's called Dean Baldwin. And they're not getting a new electric system on our dime. their lease
Hey,
for
Mr.
25
Chairman,
years. They said they
I'm sorry to
wouldn't take it.
interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt Tessa, Mr. Chairman, but I have to get offline. I'm being asked to leave at this room I'm in, so I'll try to get back on in a few minutes.
Thank you.
But yeah, Mr. Chair, we want to try to hold people to their contracts. Otherwise, we're going to continue to hemorrhage money the way we have historically.
Right.
Yeah, the bottom line is it's got to make financial sense.
Okay, I think we've been through, I'm glad you were here today to walk through the rent abatement issue with us. Okay, item number 10, Air Service Development and Consulting Services update. Jennifer.
Okay, well, we did meet and we've received one proposal. And that proposal will be going to City Council for approval next week, this month.
Well, it went to legal for
It did.
No,
it has to go to legal.
Okay.
Legal, it'll be next
It's
month.
going to legal? Okay, yeah.
No.
So
it'll be
next
May.
month,
It'll be
yeah.
May
So it'll be
before it
May
gets
before
to
council
council.
sees it, yes.
5 weeks.
weeks.
I'm ready to move on.
So legal in April.
Yes.
All right, and this provider of this service, the group was convinced they could do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And should they attract new air service, that falls under the SCASDAP grant, which is on your project list. So that's 1.6 million we have to come up with. 750 is federal, 650 is city, and 200,000 is state. Just dollars.
It's gonna be tough.
Well, yeah.
You have to encumber 1.6.
Yeah, but.
650 is
650 will be the city's
For matching.
portion, yeah. 200,000 is the state, and 750,000
Just
is
be
the
sure
grant.
Bob puts it in his budget.
Hold your breath.
I think I have like
You'll turn purple or
20
die.
million here I need.
Okay, let's move on to item number 11, Jenna.
So I have re-engaged with the auto hangers gentlemen. One of them has been sick recently and they've asked to schedule an appointment with me for next week. I let them know that there was some concerns about the location that they were requesting because they had sent in a new requested location. And then also the cost of what I wanted them to give me a better idea of what the benefits will be to the Air Center if we're only going to be making $50 a month on a land lease. And so I have encouraged them to relook at their model. And of course, I'll get with you before I meet with them next week, or I'll schedule for you to be at that meeting if that's possible. So that we're able to walk through some of the concerns and address them. Then it'll be more productive.
You don't have a date for when they're gonna.
I don't. I did get the email today asking for some time next week. So if you'll let me know what works best for you before you depart, then I'll try to schedule that for both of us to. Correct. Okay. Sounds good. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay. Mike's off for right now, so when he comes back on, he can update us on Rara. ILEA lease construction or lease cost analysis.
Sure.
And I asked for this. So
Sure.
Jenna, go ahead.
So this is I have a really pretty spreadsheet, but it wouldn't fit. You would never be able to read it on PowerPoint. So it's very basic here. But for our fiscal year 2023, we expended $726,645.70 with a revenue coming back of $576,35. So our initial year, I projected to have a larger loss, quite frankly, but we didn't expend everything on the Honeywell systems until this year. So we only had a loss last year of $149,910.70. The fiscal year to date, our expenses for operating the building, and that does include janitorial, utilities, any facilities parts that we've had to replace, along with the rest of the Honeywell job is $447,7736, and we'll have a revenue coming in. It's just one quarter because they paid a year in advance last year, plus 2 additional quarters of operational money. That's why we looked like we got so much in fiscal year 2023. So this year, as of June, we'll only have collected $116,767.63 with a loss of $330,309.76. We will bill again in July 1 for the $116,767.63. What I do see is the average expenses are going to be significantly less, and we should start going on the upside next year. And I'm hoping that as long as we don't have very many other repairs, that we'll be able to bump into the not the red.
When do you project that we'll be in the black with ILEA?
2026.
Yeah.
I can comfortably say 2026.
And so that starts.
Well, she's
June 1 of next year, 2025.
No, July. Yes, I'm sorry. That's correct. July 1 of 2025.
July 1 of 2025. Yeah. We think we'll be in the black finally with ILEA.
Correct.
Going into fiscal year 26.
Mm-hmm. And we initially said 2.5 years. The overruns on the Honeywell and the chiller rental pushed us out another 6 months.
And so the HVAC units that are in place over there now, are they going to stay there? We got to replace them?
No, they're there. We're finalizing. We're about 90% complete with the Honeywell project. We're waiting for training on the system. And then they also are trying to, it's kind of like Tyler, they got some things to work out. So it's computer controlled. The control systems all have to be communicating appropriately, making sure that we can manage the system. We don't have access externally. That's a request of the State Department. So everything is internal in the building. And so their IT person needs to be trained. Our facilities HVAC person needs to be trained. And then the property manager on this side will need to be trained.
And the rent starting on July 1 of 2025 is at 116 plus per quarter?
Yes, that's quarterly. So it was initially $453,000, and they did get their 3% increase this April. So this first quarter, they did get their initial CPI increase.
Well, black is better than red in this case. It's taken forever to get there. When did they actually move into that building?
Well, they've been in the building since like 2003, but we took it over in, we made it operationally ours in September of 2022.
All right. Let's go through the insurance claims then.
I am down to 6 properties that remain to be completed. The T-hanger roofs for 119 were completed last week. They're going to go ahead and move over to 120. So White Rock Construction is going to continue that. And then after they're done with that T-hanger, they'll be moving to 85 to be handling all the lean-to sides of Air Sales roof platform, and then the tall end doghouse side, they'll be fixing the metal and everything on that as well. There's some interior damage. I did have to have Charlie Purcell go out and do an asbestos testing on the ceiling tiles that are inside the building. They're glued to the top. They're not these, they're the small squares. So I want to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe while we're doing that. Waiting for his report to come back. And so then White Rock will be complete with their hail claims. I'm anticipating they'll be done by the end of May. Custom Construction is finishing up 1535 and 50.
So does the end of May meet the requirements that we have for insurance purposes?
As long as they're 75% complete, And me and the contractor have been working on making sure that they're going to order their materials ahead of time. The materials will be dropped, and then I can bill out for those materials. We both feel comfortable that we'll be able to satisfy the insurance company.
Because previously I thought if we didn't meet our drop dead days, we were screwed.
That's correct. So April 1 was the drop dead date that was given to the contractors. May 30, I'm sorry. Yes, April 30th, is the drop dead date for us to really be comfortable with being able to process a payout because of the layers in the self-insured fund. But David Bellino, because of constant communication, weekly updates, everything that I'm doing with him, he'll be able to turn that payout around quicker. So as long as we have everything done by the end of May, I believe we'll still get that 30-day turnaround. If anything, there'll be a small payout that is not on this fiscal year, but that's not my intention. I want to get it done beforehand.
Okay, and you've got, you said White Cloud is doing these wind claims?
White Rock is doing, finishing up T Hangar 120 and 85, Hangar 85. Custom Construction is finishing 1535 and 1534. They should be done by the end of next week if the weather allows. And Allen Roofing is working on 1083A currently. They are 99% done with 1081. They have some trim work to do out there, but they moved to the roof to get the larger components of the second roof done so that we can hit that 75% completion rate. And then their last building is the DOT building. And so those are the roofs. That's the hail claim finalizing. We do have a little bit of concern with getting the DOT building done only because, and Mac will address a little bit of that just because we've got that roofer that needs to take care of Dean Baldwin. The exposure to Dean Baldwin is worse than the loss of that ACV or the depreciation. So I know him and I are working through that, kind of have to prioritize which building is going to have to take the lead on that. But we're working through that together, and so that's the hail claim. The wind claim from 2023 encompassed Hangar 84, 1083's metal, which is Dean Baldwin, and Hangar 85 had a couple of sheets of metal that I think are going to be repaired on one end of it, not the doghouse end, the other side of the hangar. And then also 610, which if you drove in, you can see that they're finishing up the trim work on 610, which is the New Mexico Youth Challenge, and that will be done and building complete. It's my understanding that Hangar 84, 85, and 1083, I am shifting those projects over to MAC fiscal year 2025. He'll finish those up. So 610 will be the only building that the Air Center staff managed for that wind claim.
So with all the claims that we've got now, other than I want to go back to Dean Baldwin here in a little while.
Yeah, he's next.
With all the claims that we've got now, you don't see a likelihood that insurance isn't going to pick up the tab for the vast majority of that, and we will meet the time requirements for the insurance on that.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other questions on wind or hail claims? And so we need Mac to talk to us.
Yeah, Mac is number 6.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, so on February 27th, we had a windstorm with sustained winds of 45 miles an hour and gusts of 63 miles an hour. That caused damage to 3 of our buildings at the Air Center, and subsequently we filed an insurance claim for the damage. The first one is on Hangar 84. The damage to that building was pretty minimal. We had 10 sheets of corrugated metal siding fall off or become damaged that we'll need to repair and put back up. On the second one, we had damage to the roof on building 1770. That roof was installed in 2018, and so we also filed a warranty claim for that damage. Approximately 160 feet of the siding came off. And so we'll have to repair the siding and then 5 feet of roofing on the building. And last but not least, building 1083, the Dean Baldwin hangar. So the wind got underneath about a 30-foot strip of fascia that came undone from a prior storm, and that caused that compromised the adhesive for about 40,000 square feet of that roof. And so we reached out to the contractor that installed that roof. I believe he finished it in 2018 or 2019. And in consultation with him, we determined that we could mitigate the damage and long term make the repair by just changing the system to a mechanically fastened system. So it was a fully adhered TPO system, and so we started doing that. We mitigated the damage with mechanical fasteners, and we made a lot of progress. And then on March 24th, Sunday, the wind kind of changed directions on us and came from the north and the west. And that storm removed about 200 feet of fascia and compromised another 40,000 square feet of adhesive for the roofing. And so after talking to the insurance company, they advised us that that would be a separate claim. So we filed a claim for that damage. And we have since installed a bunch of mechanical fasteners to mitigate any further damage. And that windstorm that happened on the 24th was on a Sunday. When the wind got underneath the roof, it caused a lot of the structure for some of the vents that are original to the building to shake, causing some debris in the building, and some of the structure actually fell during that storm. And since we've worked with the maintenance staff at Dean Baldwin and re-secured those vents. So that's the extent of the recent wind damage. I'll stand for any questions.
So Dean Baldwin did or did not suffer, as far as we know, problems to aircraft to the two wind events. They did or did not suffer anything. They did.
They were presented to Baldwin, so. Yes, they did.
Are you Dean Baldwin?
I'm just, yeah.
Okay, all right. Would you mind introducing yourself to them?
My name is Max Quinteros.
Okay.
And I'm the GM for Dean Baldwin.
Okay.
Okay. And yes, we did suffer. We had a shutdown of those ducts that he's stating.
Right.
They're kind of like sitting on a I would say 2x4s.
Probably metal. Wood. It's probably metal, isn't it?
No, it's wood.
Really?
Because it came down to the hangar.
They're metal ducts, but they're nailed to these 2x4s. And those 2x4s are original to the building. And so they've been up there a while and they've seen a lot of storms and a lot of water. And that roof was moving a lot on the 24th. In fact, they have some new vents that they're looking to install that are sitting on the roof, 600 pounds. And there's clear evidence of those 600-pound pallets moving along with the roof.
Wow. Yeah. So they did came down. Unfortunately, they didn't hit their place, but I mean, it was for just work of operation. So we had shut down the Sunday because we didn't know there's like 24 of them, so all over the city. So I believe there were 3 of them. They basically the wood came down from them, so we had to shut down just safety purposes. So that was one of the things. The other question that I have is that, I mean, what I hear from my facility manager. He's stating that the roofers are stating that it's just a temporary repair they're doing right now. So they still need to do a permanent repair on it. And what is my worry is if it rains, because they need some cutout on the material on top. So if it rains, there's water going to be coming down, and that's a no-no.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so, like I said, you know, we started changing the roofing system from an adhesive glue-based system to a mechanically fastened system.
And you're putting big nails through it.
And we've, they're more like screws.
Okay.
So we've continued with that as a temporary measure to mitigate the damage. And they've installed a bunch of these fasteners. And this week they're going back through and they're covering all of those and they're taping all of the cutouts that helped secure these vents that were causing problems.
So that's this week that they're going to be doing that.
Yeah, so they're trying to make it watertight and as best they can, and as a temporary measure while we work on a longer term permanent repair.
Okay. So I don't know what else can be done except what he said they're doing. So I was in the building 3+ years ago when you had plastic sheets hung from the ceilings above the aircraft you were painting. I guess I'm hopeful you don't have to do that, but it's April and wind's going to blow and it's going to blow hard. Yesterday was a pretty good example of that. Today, not so bad. But if the roof is mechanically put in place, and if we can cover those screws that you're putting into it, and then cover anything that's been cut out, that should take care of most of the problems. But I think, are you two men working together pretty closely on this? If you're not, you should be.
Yeah, well, he's working with our facility.
Okay.
So it's just the feedback that I get it from my manager, because I mean there's a concern in case, as you know, our trade is painting. So
sure.
While we're painting, we get some rain. Like yesterday, it looked like there's gonna have some rain. So
right.
That's our concern. The process we painting, damage paint.
So we all need to just pray that it rains on the farmland, even on the good, but stays away from the airport.
Set the bubble up. The
You
Springfield
got better
bubble.
connections than I do.
Yeah, us ranchers. You only care about the farmland people? They fly those damn planes over us. You don't fly them over the farms.
That's what feeds me.
Now, when Mike and I went to DC, we talked to our congressional delegation about seeing about working and seeing what we could work out to get some money developing, 3 or 4 hangars over there for Dean Baldwin. So we've been looking at it, but and every time Barbara comes, I buy her lunch and I buy her breakfast and everything I can. But sometimes she's just going to have to help us build those hangars for us. She would get new hangars. She's been here 30 years. I don't know why she waited for 30 years to get to get it fixed. So we're here to fix it for her. So be sure to tell her that the mayor said he was here to fix it for her. She just has to get her checkbook out. And we'll get her all done. We talked today already about putting the new water lines down there just so we have all that.
Yeah,
We're ready.
Kim, it sounds to me like you haven't bought supper for Barbara yet. So think about that.
Well, they closed their winters now.
Ooh, I gotta go too.
Okay, we are to item number
17, Max, thank you for being here. Appreciate the update.
I got the last question. In regards to timing,
Those guys
when do you foresee the project being completed
100%, so,
I'll try to stay off your back.
we're getting it
Phone calls,
temporarily
I think.
watertight this
Try.
week. I think within 3 to 4 months, we can have everything done. There's a
Cool,
lot
there
of
you
back
gotta
and
go
forth
too.
with,
Hold it down.
the insurance company and getting the funding to us and budgeted, and then, getting that to the roofer and getting them paid.
But waterproof?
I've been leaving too.
A week, you said?
Yeah.
What, that's a-
And, like I said, we've installed a bunch of mechanical fasteners. This past week, they've held up pretty well. So we think the roof is secured. There's a lot of fasteners up there. It's just a matter of getting it watertight as a temporary measure. I think the 200 feet of fascia, we have a plan to add some more metal to that fascia better. That may take a while, but it's but the roof would still be watertight, and it wouldn't move as much as it has been.
I understand what you're trying to accomplish, and I would be too if I were in your position.
Someone else could do the
But we
PowerPoints. I'm more
put
than happy
Mac
to
on the
have those.
spot to answer a question that he doesn't have all the info he needs to answer you. But as far as watertight, if that can be done in the next week or so.
Yeah,
That's what you're
my
after.
favorite.
Yes, that's what you're after. Okay.
Which is fine.
All right. Thanks to both of you gentlemen for being here. Okay, let's move on to update on vacant properties. Jenna, item 17.
So, I don't know if we have all of them listed or not. Okay. Nothing has changed on our vacant properties. I anticipate that we'll be adding building 100 and building 117 by June for vacancy. It's my understanding that Ascent Aviation will be gone by the end of June. I have had a client come out and look at several buildings out here. I have an additional time to meet with them. It's a company looking to come in to provide support for teardown. So it'll be a back shop for the systems that are already in place. So I'm looking forward to that. And so I'm meeting with them with some follow up on the 4 or 5 buildings. They looked at 100, they looked at 117, they looked at building 82, which is the old Coke building. The gentleman is a contractor as well, so he is able to mod his own building, and we can work through some pre-negotiations of those items. And then they also looked at the north end of building 115 and the potential of building on the site where 112 is being removed.
I've got a question on 611. Has there been any interest in that building at all?
Nope. That's not true. We've shown it once to the STEM group that was looking to do the incubator offices for support to aeronautical education and businesses.
But they use all of
No, they only want part of the building.
Has there been any discussion at all with Raw Reference office space?
Not with me.
Okay. Because obviously that would be at least a temporary pretty good space for them.
They did look at 611 and 1000 while they were here.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, this is Mike. We did list that as a potential building for them in our last document a couple weeks ago, but we listed a couple of different things. So, but we did list it.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Mike, stay on. Any questions from anybody reference vacant properties? we've lost most of our audience at this point. Marcel, you're tough. You're hanging in there.
Don't worry.
Okay. Mike, would you, you were previously on the agenda. Would you update us briefly on Rah Place?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, not a whole lot new, I'm not sure. So let me tell you where we're currently at. They're still on a mid to late April for announcement of their final selection for a site. We did receive a request for more information, as did the other 2 locations. We are a finalist, 3 locations with Pueblo, Colorado, Casper, Wyoming, and of course, Roswell, the great state of New Mexico. So, so we're waiting on them. So I talked to them about weekly, and in fact, we're still working on getting some estimates on different things, but frankly, we can't do a whole lot until they actually make an announcement. So we anticipate that'll happen. We think we're in good shape, but the other ones probably think the same thing. So everyone keep your fingers crossed.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jenna.
I said, oh, and your eyes and your toes.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you, Mike. Item number 18, lease summary report.
Okay, so I've augmented the summary report a little bit. I've decided to go ahead and start listing on the left the upcoming leases that are coming. Either they're where they're going to expire between May and September, so that you actually have names and buildings in which we'll be discussing. And then the expired leases are updated. We've still got the Hangar 91 tenants, which we're very close. I anticipate that that'll be secured within the next week to 2 weeks. Kabu and for building 72 and 84. Kestrel Anesthesia is a tenant that's in the T hangars. We've not had any communication with him. He's falling a little bit behind on rent, and a demand notice has been sent. So that was called on the 21st of March, and so that is with the legal department right now. The FAA leases are going to City Council on consent. New Mexico Department Transportation's lease has been passed. We're just awaiting for them to get their signatures taken care of on their side. The Summit renewal is the same. I think it got lost a little bit in translation in January. I don't know if with the David being in place, if the email got kicked to the wrong place, but so I've been in contact with them. Pac Blue Aerospace and Building 755 has let us know that they are planning on coming out and finalizing anything that they have out here on aircraft, and they'll be terminating that lease in June. And then Bravo 3 bunkers is at 1133, is at City Council consent as well. I have a meeting with Bravo 3 Holdings next week to look at another bunker, so I anticipate that I'll be bringing a new lease forward for one of those vacant bunkers that are ATF rated. So we currently have 14 expired leases, and then the transition of what's coming forward. So if you do the math, they're kind of all there and accounted for, but everything seems to be running fairly smoothly.
Hey, on upcoming leases, I see Red Mountain Arsenal and a bunker over there, but are they caught back up on lease amounts yet?
No, sir.
And so what's their status?
Chairman, did you say
The last conversation I had.
I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, were you speaking about Red Mountain Arsenal?
Yes.
For the group, we spoke with Senator Lujan about his office about Red Mountain Arsenal. There's some issues at the federal level that they're taking this on as a case that affects them. So just make you aware of that. There's some stuff happening in the background to help keep those guys moving forward.
And I did have a conversation with Pete Charninsky last week, and he indicated that there was some funding coming his direction through First American Bank or a bank of some sort to give him a temporary loan to get him caught up. I anticipated seeing him on Friday. I did not. I will call him, but I didn't see him yesterday, and I've not heard from him today either.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Mike. Sale tomorrow regarding 85.
Mr. Chairman, the the last city council meeting, I thought they approved the 2 FAAs, DOT and the Bravo 3. I don't know what, I don't remember all of them, but the ones that were presented last meeting, I think when was it, last week, whenever it was, I think they were approved. Just.
They're on city council's consent agenda, Chair, or I'm sorry, Commissioner.
They went to finance.
No, they're on consent for city council.
No, but they went.
Well, they talked about city. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Legal, yeah.
So I guess it went through legal, Mike,
Yeah.
not city council.
I know they get off.
I know.
Okay.
It's forever.
All right, any other questions from item number 18? Item number 19 then, meeting location. There's been questions about possibly moving our meeting from the Air Center back to City Hall. Mike, I know you had indicated that that's something you might want to consider. Can you tell us a little bit why you'd want to do that?
Well, I think one of the issues that Commissioner Hitchcock and I both agreed on is the audio visual is so much better down there in City Hall. It is a little bit bigger room. But I think the audio visual piece, for me to get on in this call, for example, I had to manually type in the call information just to get in 3 times. So I don't know if it could be just Mike, I guess, but I just do know that works a whole lot, or seems to work a whole lot better down there in that other room.
I had issues too, Mike, getting on the call, just so you know.
So what both of you gentlemen would like to see us move it back to City Hall, is that correct?
Yes.
Matt?
I'm either way. I'm just letting you know that I have the same issues that Mike had getting on the call. It was kind of not a smooth, and I don't know if, like I said, it could have been a Matt problem, not a call problem. So, but it wasn't smooth.
For next month, let's leave it out here, and then we'll reach a decision by the commission next month as to where we hold the June meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend you speak to the other commissioners and your input too as well.
I didn't understand.
He said he recommends that you get input from the other commissioners as well.
I will.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
Okay, I think we're, unless somebody's got something else, we are finally through with this marathon meeting.
Motion.
I'm not sure.
Or can you?
I'm not sure.
Oh, you got it,
you
yeah.
have.
I have to make a motion. You have to motion to
So
adjourn.
I need a motion. So moved. And a second, Mike or Matt?
Seconded.
Okay.
Pick one.
All those in favor of adjourning the meeting signify so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Aye.
Okay. I know. Are you gonna be here, man?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.